Pressure, No Diamonds. This is the project that is across the street. And yeah, so this project developed very much in relationship to the space, right? So the windows and just like the height of the space. And you know, when I was thinking about, because I guess I don't know how long we've been working on this, but close to a year perhaps, you know, it's sort of been in the works. You know, I went through many different ideas, and I was just, you know, thinking of things that kind of related to Cambridge and things that related, you know, to the building and the space. And I think in the end, that's kind of what won out, is just kind of what you were talking about, Iga. Like, it's this beautiful juncture, and it's this beautiful coming together of like this library and this art gallery, what happens in those two places, and why that's interesting. And why that's interesting to me in my art practice, and I was really trying to find sort of a way to kind of bring those things together. This is a picture of Vermont in the winter on the left-hand side, so that's Johnson, Vermont, where like the Vermont Studio Center is, which is like a residency place in the States. And I was there, when was I there? In 2014 for 4 weeks in March, and I was there to work on a comic book, and I never got it done, which is totally fine because lots of good stuff happened in place of it. And one of them was meeting this fellow who's Ross Gay, who's the person I collaborated on the publication with. And I met him like the first day I was there, and I had just started, I guess, like training for basketball as opposed to playing, meaning like I had a very like specific, very particular sort of set of drills that I would go through every time I played, right? And I was really looking to get better. Like having played just in, gosh, I guess elementary school, like I kind of went through all my life being like, yeah, I'm a good player. And then, you know, you have this kind of awful realization one day where I'm like, oh, I'm really bad actually. So going to Vermont, I had intended to work on this comic book, but also I wanted like my shot and my left-hand dribble to get a lot better. So, you know, the comic book didn't get done, but all the other things did. So I met this fellow, Ross Gay, and we immediately hit it off. We became really good friends, and we played basketball like 2 or 3 hours every day at the university that was kind of on the hill. And a few things about, yeah, gosh, where to start. So this is a little drawing I made from him. I thought it kind of introduced a few things nicely. So basically, No Pressure, No Diamonds is a quote from Thomas Carlyle, who was a Scottish essayist, satirist, historian, who worked during the Victorian era. There's no reason you should know that. The reason you might know No Pressure, No Diamonds is because this fellow, Robert Griffith III, who's an NFL football player, I don't exactly know what was happening in his career at the time, but Adidas came out with an ad campaign, and they kind of coined, they took it from, you know, Thomas Carlyle. They did as people do these days. They reblogged, you know, they took No Pressure, No Diamonds, and they sort of associated it with Robert Griffith Jr., the third, and that's where these socks come from. So I purchased those socks on Boxing Day a few years ago, not knowing what the reference was, but enjoying it. And so when I went to Vermont, I had these socks, and I would use them, I would wear them while I was playing basketball. And this is this beautiful moment of serendipity. I think Ross, like, had 2 pink stud diamond earrings in his ears, right? And it's just, you know, I think what I really love about what has come of this project, No Pressure, No Diamonds, is that these really kind of insignificant things like socks and studs and, you know, playing basketball, not insignificant to some, but have really just kind of become the core of this, like, really, this project that I'm really kind of interested in and fond of. So while I was in Vermont, I was just kind of working through a few things. So I was doing a bunch of drawings that kind of referenced various people and things. I was drawing a lot of hands. I was a bit stuck on this comic book that I was talking about, so my go-to was always to draw hands. I think I like the irony of a still hand and my moving hand and my brain that's not quite sure what to do always. And then I started drawing these hands. And what these hands are a diagram of this shot. So once you've, proper basketball form is once you've like, it's a jump shot or just a free throw. Proper form is you've got your guide hand and then your follow through hand. And if you played at any point in your life, especially in elementary school, you might remember the sort of reaching for the cookie in the cookie jar. It's like this kind of real sort of limp wrist almost. So I was learning a lot of that playing with Ross because I had a really bad shot. So that was something we were going over and over and over again. It's kind of repetition that any kind of skill acquisition requires, right? So for those of you who haven't seen it, this is an image of what's next door, or what's across the street, I should say. So it's this image, it's this drawing, and I think they're not all different, but I think there's about 23 or so drawings for the 64 windows. So on each window, there's a set of these hands, and as you look at them, it really kind of, you know, it's kind of this like this shot that we've done over and over and over again. This is, you can't really see the hands in this image, but I just wanted to show it to you to sort of get an idea of like the scope of how the hands would sort of relate to the space. And just a bit on the left, you can see one of the banners. And this is a better shot of the banner. So you've got one huge banner that's Gertrude Stein and Simone Augustus playing horse. And then you've got the middle banner, which says insistence, I think it's 13 times. And then the other one, the one on the left, says repetition. And then to introduce these two, so Simone Augustus plays for the Minnesota Lynx, WNBA. Their team just won the WNBA playoffs. She was also the one who was in that sort of like kiss that I showed you with Diana Taurasi. She just got married to her wife a little while ago, or to her girlfriend, who is now her wife. And then on the right-hand side, we've got Gertrude Stein, Alice Toklas, and Basket, their dog. And for those of you who aren't too familiar with Gertrude Stein, she was a poet, a writer. She held the salons in Paris. She's an American, but then moved to Paris, you know, sort of mingled with the likes of like Picasso, and all those folks. And her writing is really like a minimalist writing with like quite often disregard to punctuation, and to sort of contextualize her very easily, like she's very well known for a rose is a rose is a rose is a rose, which I think speaks very well to what her writing is sort of like. And one of my favorite books of hers is Lectures in America, so it's a bunch of lectures that she gave in America. And in Portraits and Repetition, which is one of the essays, she's got this quote that I absolutely adore, and I'm going to read it to you. Then also there's the important question of repetition, and is there any such thing? Is there repetition or is there insistence? I'm inclined to believe there's no such thing as repetition, and really how can there be? And I came across this, I think it was in 2008, and at that time I was doing my MFA, and I was really, you know, interested in sort of, you know, thinking through sports. But thinking through sports with regards to textiles. For many years, I had designed textile fabric in Montreal. I'd made, you know, textiles was always a really important part of what I did. And I think a huge part of textile making is like this kind of repetition, right? It's doing the same thing over and over again. And back in 2008, when I came across this quote, I was like, oh, so is so many kinds of skill acquisition. It's doing the same thing over and over again. But I think what I love so much about this quote is that I was like, oh, but it's never doing the same thing over and over again. There's like, it will never be the same thing over and over again. And I think that's where I thought about insistence, right? Or to insist upon something, it just like, there was like this emotive quality to it that I was interested in. Yeah, so with the project at across the street, my intention, you know, I think what I really wanted to do was to create this kind of trifecta, right? So you've got this object right here, which has all of our publications, and we sort of retrofitted a snapped Cambridge newspaper stand, and this is meant to be taken away, and in it you've got these hands, and I think once again there's like 20 hands, and these drawings, all the same drawing, not all the same drawing, and text, and the text all refers to different kinds of basketball drills, ways of being, ways of enacting, you know, ways of being in your body to sort of, you know, be prepared for this ball. But once again, like the ball doesn't actually come up in any of this, like the ball is never present, right? And once again, I think it's this desire to kind of like push away from, you know, competition and that being all we think about when we think about sports. So you've got the hands, and then you've got these banners, and then this part. And, you know, yeah, so just to go back to what I was saying before, a big part of it was just this response to the space and the architecture, but also I think how we come to ideas, how we come to knowledge, how we, you know, not only how we perfect our jump shot, but how we read through a book or how we think through an idea. It really is about this kind of like insistence and this kind of returning to and coming again. And in particular, I was really interested in Simone Augustus and Gertrude Stein and kind of bringing them together in this like huge, I think it's 10 by 10 feet, banner. And, you know, Iga's kind of mentioned like, oh, people won't know who they are, you know, what is that? And I know there's always this fear of something being a bit too like inside baseball, where it's like you have to be in the know to like get something. And I just love that it's in a library, and that is what we do in a library when we don't know something, or that is what we once did in a library, and we do many things in a library now, but like we go there when we don't know the answer to something, and hopefully, you know, amongst people and machines and all these different tools, like we come to that answer. So this like, you know, kind of dream, this sort of dream meeting of these two women, one being historical, one being present day, like this meeting that will never happen, this meeting that I would imagine, like what would they talk about, you know, having Gertrude Stein and this kind of repetition in her writing, and Simone Augustus, and this repetition in just how she functions in the world, what her career is, like what her skill is, like what kind of conversation could be had there. And also, they're playing horse, and I just to, you know, bring you into sort of my thought process, like I went through many different sort of versions of what it could be, and I settled on horse because partly the absurdity of it, you know, it kind of reminded me of something Gertrude Stein might write, but also, you know, I think horse is there's enough understanding with horse. Like I think enough of us have played horse, or it is like within the playground kind of vocabulary enough that I was sort of banking on it not being too insider baseball. Yeah, I guess the last thing I was here to show you was this is a spread from the publication. And, you know, I think also in just like the lack of a lot of text, it kind of asks you to sort of sit with it in this different way, you know, and not in this way in which you're sort of, you know, there's a lot of text for you to absorb, but just for you to sort of, I don't know, just kind of be with it. It's a little bit more subtle, a little bit poetic. Yeah, and I think that's everything. Yeah, that's it. Thank you so much.